Now that we're done talking about the politics of Congress, let's talk about the state equivalent of Congress in Nevada, of course. That is the Nevada Legislature. It's a bicameral institution composed of the state Senate and the state Assembly. With that being said, let's move on and get into some of the crucial details here. And in part, we'll be looking at this in comparison to the U.S. Congress. How is it similar? How is it different? So, as I had suggested, indeed, the Nevada legislature is like Congress in the sense that it is bicameral. We have an assembly that is akin to the House of Representatives and a Senate that is akin to the U.S. Senate, obviously. In each house, a limit of 12 years. Representatives can serve in each body for 12 years. The term of service in the assembly is 2 years, so you can do 6 2-year terms. Term of service in the Senate, 4 years, so you can do 3 4-year terms in the Senate. This legislative body meets for 120 days, so 4 months every 2 years. That makes it a part-time, essentially amateur legislature. It also meets additional times in between when called into emergency session by the governor. Again, Sandoval did this recently, I think back in January, when he called them into emergency session to approve the Tesla deal to get Tesla to build their battery manufacturing plant up north. The pay is decidedly minimal. I think it's something like $7,000 every 2 years with some per diem while you're meeting. So this raises questions, right? In part because we have a legislature that only meets once every 2 years. We do have a biennial budget. The second year of that biennial budget can get sketchy because you're having to make predictions about the future regarding revenue and spending. Those often prove to be a bit off, and that means that I think every year now for quite a long time, the governor has had to call the legislature into emergency session in the second year of a biennial budget in order to fix the budget. So at some point, right, are those really emergencies when they are predictable and every year? Maybe it's no longer an emergency. Maybe the legislature in Nevada should be full-time, more professional. Certainly in nearly every state of the union, it is a job that pays enough to actually make a living, and they meet much like the U.S. Congress on a relatively year-round basis with time off for the summer and Christmas and things like that. Um, so should Nevada move in that direction? I believe we, the people of Nevada, have rejected that at the polls in recent elections when it's been an initiative. So at this point, we're going to stick with what we have, but many have argued that, look, as we grow, as we become larger as a state, as we surpass 3 million people, we should think about becoming perhaps more professional and more full-time. That being said, Texas is a very big state, and they also have a part-time amateur legislature, and it seems to work well enough for them. So the debate goes on that issue. All right, so this is kind of a melange of things to know about the Nevada legislature. Fun facts to know and learn. To override a gubernatorial veto, you need 2/3 in both chambers. That's tough, right? That's tough. I'll need to double check this. I know that Governor Lombardo, a Republican, this legislative session, 2023, I know he vetoed 75 bills, which is a new record for Nevada. I don't know if that's good or bad. It's certainly checks and balances, right? So he vetoed 75 pieces of legislation, and I don't think Democrats overrode any of those, but let me double check that. If I'm wrong on that, because I think they did not, if I'm wrong, I'll send out an announcement. To pass a tax increase in Nevada, and this is so dumb in my view, procedurally it doesn't really make sense, but you need 2/3 in both chambers to pass a tax increase. All right. I don't know, right? And we did that not that long ago, put it into the Constitution under Governor Mark Gibbons, who was a lamentable governor. And I guess the idea is we don't like tax increases, so we'll make it extra hard. But that doesn't seem like a principled reason to do that, right? Like at the national level, right? To ratify a treaty, you need 2/3 in the Senate. And the argument is, right, that on foreign policy, there should be consensus, bipartisan agreement on how we deal with the rest of the world. That's a broad, principled argument, right? But 2/3 for a tax increase? Redunculous, but there it is. Doesn't make it impossible to increase taxes, but it makes it awfully difficult. No line item veto for the governor in terms of the budget. I would argue that's a good thing. Almost all governors in America have this power. They can veto particular budget items in a larger budget bill. And then if the legislature wants to override any of them, they have to take a separate vote on each one. Typically, it's very hard to do that. Right? I mean, let's say a governor out of a huge budget bill, line item vetoes like, I don't know, 60 items. What's the chance the legislature is going to be able to debate and override on any of those 60? It's very low. So the line item veto tends to give the governor a huge advantage in shaping a budget. In Nevada, the governor does not have that power. Because even then, right, the governor in Nevada tends to dominate the budget process. Right, in part because the legislature only meets for 4 months every 2 years, exclusive of special sessions. The governor, right, is serving in office 12 months out of the year, every year, with a big staff to work on a budget. That's how it works, right, in Nevada. The governor proposes a budget at the beginning of a session, and the legislature responds to that budget. And there's not that much time to do that. So, now that being said, look, right, Democrats have a strong hold on power in the legislature. If I were to broadly characterize the budget battles in this recent legislative session, I would say it was a good mix of Lombardo getting some of what he wanted, Democrats getting some of what they wanted, which arguably, right, is a healthy way to do a democracy. Over the years, Nevada's legislature has been very party competitive, going back and forth between the two parties. Now, that being said, look, it's been a while since Republicans controlled either chamber of the legislature. I think you got to go back to 2014. And ever since, really, which would really only be 2016, right, because it was a 2-year cycle. So I think they won control of both chambers in 2014 and then lost it in 2016. And ever since then, it's been Democrats all the way. Now, that being said, although Democrats do dominate the legislature here in Nevada and have for a bit, and that could change, right now, they have a 2/3 supermajority in the Assembly, but they're 1 seat shy of that in the Senate. So that was huge for Governor Lombardo, right? It gave him a lot more leverage since he knew that it would be very difficult or maybe even impossible for the legislature to override any vetoes unless at least one Republican in the Senate flipped.